Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Camera Quest. Today I am going to be testing out this Agfa Rangefinder 35mm camera. Picked it up at my favorite thrift store locally, Bookman's. Paid maybe like 25 bucks for it. They have a lot of 35mm cameras there. I was there this morning and came across a Mamiya 35mm, and I'm like, wait a minute, I got this thing on the shelf. I've never tried it out. Even though it's kind of small and puny looking, it's compact enough compared to some of the other 35mm, like the Canon one that I had. A lot of those just wouldn't fit into my backpack, or they were bulky enough that I was afraid they would damage other things in the backpack, like my laptop, any other device that I might be carrying around. But this guy, he's so teeny tiny, he fits in a little side pocket. I really got to give him a shot. So I'm going to take him out on the road. Before I do, just want to talk about what a rangefinder camera is. Rangefinder camera, you have a viewfinder, but there's no focusing. There's no single lens reflex where you can see through the lens and see what you're focusing. You're going to have to rely on your ability to judge the distance of other objects. You know, this camera that's filming me right now, I think it's about 3 feet away from me. So look on here. Figure out where 3 feet is, make my adjustments, take the picture. A lot of the classic street photographers used rangefinders in the past. People like Gary Winogrand, because they could just keep the camera down here and they were such good judges of where things were. They could manipulate with their fingers and they could be basically taking pictures that are really candid, that today would get you in trouble, but we're talking about the classic era of street photography, 1960s. People didn't think about privacy issues the same way back then. So, this guy, even though he's puny, he's solid as a brick, he looks good, I feel confident, let's take him out. I made extensive use of the Agfa rangefinder during a tour I took in early March 2020. I did model shoots in multiple states. The first was with Sylvie Mix in Joshua Tree National Park. Sylvie is an art model from Ohio, and the film that I had loaded in the camera at the time was the Lomo Purple. It's the closest I could find to a commercially available color infrared film, and it's not infrared in the sense of how it functions, but it does have a huge color shift to it, this purplish tint that changes skin tone, sky color, so on and so forth. Not many of my frames are out of focus. Surprisingly, when you try and gauge how far away you are from somebody and you're working in a bright environment where you can have your f-stop around f8, f11, f16, it's not too hard to get something in focus. If I was shooting in a darker environment, an indoor environment, and I had to keep my f-stop around 3.5, 4, that smaller depth of field would probably make it a lot more difficult to get something in focus. You'd have to be right on with your guesstimate on how far somebody is away from you. The second shoot I did was with Anna Corby. She is an actress and art model in LA, and we shot around Little Tokyo. It was an aesthetic that I was really into because of a music video called Read My Mind by The Killers from 2006, directed by Diane Martel. The third shoot was in San Francisco, and this was with art model Kisa Hughes and her boyfriend Dave. They had these military outfits that Kisa got from an army surplus store in Tucson, near where I live, and I felt like this was almost the ideal approach to shooting with this unusual kind of film and in the rangefinder camera, because what I've noticed in some of my other rangefinder images is that maybe a piece of dust or something got on the film. There's a scratch that sometimes appears. I'm okay with that if it helps the film to have this old aged effect. But combined with military garb and barbed wire fence, this really reminded me of some Vietnam photos my father took. I'm not sure on what kind of camera, probably a 110 camera in the early 70s. I have looked at these photos for many, many years and sort of picked up a particular vibe where maybe the colors have rotted on the photo. They're definitely not the sharpest photos in the world, but they're meaningful to me. At a certain point, the sprockets in the film seem to have come off the reel. So whenever I was winding the film, I could feel something strange inside the camera. It wasn't exactly doing what it was supposed to do. And when I wound the film back, had it developed, I could see when it got to this frame on the film, it just started double exposing, triple exposing over and over, because I have multiple heads of Kisa and her boyfriend upside down, right side up. It's a cool image for sure. Definitely not something I could plan when shooting in this camera. Overall, I am super pleased with the results of this. I think that shooting with regular film is fine, but combining an unusual camera and an unusual film gets you to this point, I don't want to say of originality. It's a matter of making creative choices with what tools are available to you. As long as I'm going to shoot 35mm film in a camera, I want to make it something that's as much a choice of me and not a matter of, well, these are the common materials, these are the common cameras. And if I did that, I don't think I would have ended up with work I'd be nearly as happy with. Certainly with the concept that we did with Kisa, I shot this stuff digitally as well, and I put the images side by side, and one just has a lot more personality and a lot more character to it than even things I tried to make look old using Adobe Lightroom's techniques. If you come across a rangefinder camera at your local thrift store, make sure everything's turning in it, open it up, make sure that it's snapping exposures when you change the shutter speed, make sure that it seems to be as quick as it says. These are cameras that don't require batteries, they don't require a lot of special care, they can be treated a little more ruggedly, and it's very likely that you're going to find them for a very cheap price. That's my experience. If I come across any more rangefinders that look cool and are small enough to be put in my pocket, my backpack, and everything seems copacetic, I'm definitely snapping them up.